Well, I'm going to make some bread. I'm going to start with the measuring device. What I need now is various bits of flour, which I think we've got down here. We've got some yeast, that's good. We need some Cotswold farmhouse flour and a bit of strong white red flour. So we've got the machine here, which is the key to the whole process. We haven't actually bought any bread since before Christmas, about last November I think, and it must be end of June now. Right. The can, which we're going to fill up in a moment. We need 340 mils of water. That normally works out okay, so I'm just going to measure that out. Let's have a look. Not get that just right, too much. A little bit less than that. That's it. There we are, that's exactly what we need. And we'll just add that water into the container like that. And the next thing is to measure the flour. Now before we start, I'd like to get a bit of wheat and oats together. So let's get the oatmeal. We'll put about 80 grams in of that. Got it. And now we'll add the wholemeal, which will take up to about 250 grams today. Perhaps a bit more. There we are. There we are, that's the wholemeal. And then we'll top it up to 500 grams with the strong white bread flour. Here we go. You tend to need a mixture of a bit of brown and a bit of white because that gives you a better bread, we tend to find. There we are. And the next thing we need is a teaspoonful and a half of yeast. So I've got a nice little measuring spoon here. I like everything to be as accurate as possible because then you can reproduce it later. So that's the first teaspoon. And not quite enough there, so we'll just have to use some yeast because it wasn't quite enough there for the half teaspoon. Like this. So that's the dry side already. So now we'll come back to the what I call the wet side. I usually put in a tablespoon and a half of olive oil, which we've got here, best extra virgin. So we'll just put in one and it's nearly two, but never mind, that'll be all right. And then we also need a tablespoon of brown sugar, which we'll add in as well. That just lets the yeast develop and bite onto something. Now this is the point to check. We haven't forgotten anything. We've got the water, the right quantity. We've got some oil. We've got some sugar. We've got the dry ingredients. So now we're going to mix them together. So this is where we put the dry ingredients into the liquid. I tend to use a spoon because shaking it from the pan can get a bit messy, although this can get a bit messy too. There we go, and there's all the oats at the bottom, and the yeast is finding its way in, and the brown sugar. There we go, let's probably tip that now. There. That's all nicely mixed up. And so finally what we do is we get the machine, open the lid, take our bucket of ingredients, snap it down, close the lid. I'm going to switch it on, and there's a menu here. I can change the settings. We're going to have 750 gram loaf with medium setting, medium crust, and we press the button and away we go. And there we are, it's starting to do its thing. And in about 3.5 hours we shall have some bread. And now we can see that the mixing is taking place, and that will go on now for a little while and eventually get turned into a really good dough, which we can then expect to turn into some nice bread later on. Well, we're about 1.5 hours into the baking now, and as you can see we've got a loaf rising up very nicely inside, and we've just got 1 hour and 9 minutes to go before our bread arrives. So just one thing left ready to cut a piece of bread? Cut a piece of bread? Ah, well, there we are. It does very well, doesn't it? It's nice and light. Just cut a couple, I think. And we have a piece of bread and a cup of tea. There we go.